10 that didn't happen. We are so fortunate today to have two representatives from Robert Half International. I'd like to introduce them. The first one is Peter Brent, and he is the branch manager for the Manchester Robert Half International.
Hi, how are you?
And our second representative is, Thomas McNaughton, and he is a division manager with Robert Half. Thank you, guys. Let's give a round of applause.
Thank you for the forced clap. Just want to grab things. So it's interesting just listening to the professor talk about the unemployment and how that may affect you or may not affect you, and how it affects us, and how it someday at some point in time will probably affect all of us. And I don't know what the stats were, but right now in New Hampshire, the unemployment is at 5.3%. In the accounting field, it's lower than that. I still believe it's around 3%. Now, if you compare that to our neighbors, to the west, to the north, is there anything to the north? Not really, no. Maine, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Vermont, they're hovering around between 7 and 8%. So there's a lot of business in New Hampshire that's thriving, and we hope to play a role in that, and hopefully can help you folks in your career and success. So again, my name's Peter. I'm the branch manager at the Robert Half right here in Manchester, New Hampshire on Elm Street. And Tom, as she mentioned, is the division director of our Temps team there in Manchester. And we want to talk to you about cover letters. We want to talk to you about resumes. We want to talk to you about interview tips, about what we can do as an organization to help you in your career, in your search, your job search, or in your career just in general. So Tom will probably get us started if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, again, Tom McNaughton, Division Director for Temps in Manchester. We place accounting professionals in temporary and temp to full-time positions. I've been in the business for about 11 years or so. So, Pete and I both come with a lot of experience of seeing thousands, literally, of resumes and interviewing thousands of candidates as well. I've, in my career, have spanned many different, genre of staffing, from light industrial to heavy-duty accounting and finance as well. So I've seen a lot of different things in my career from a resume perspective and an interview perspective. So hopefully we can share some of that experience with you guys today. We do want it to be interactive as much as possible, so if you have any questions or anything like that, feel free at any time. Just put your hand up, and we'd love to talk to you about what your thoughts are, or if you have any questions for us as far as that goes. We wanted to start off talking about cover letters. I know probably everybody here has a resume, I would assume, or certainly preparing to get one together. What about a cover letter? Does everybody have a cover letter, or put one together, or giving some thought to doing that? Anyone? Not yet? Just a quick one over there. Okay. Well, the cover letter is something that you may or may not know is really it's about that first impression that you're making on the client, giving them a higher view perspective of what you're looking for. You want it to be professional. I think is really what you want to have in the back of your mind when you're setting up the cover letter. You want it to be succinct, and you don't want it to give chapter and verse on your resume, because that's what's going to be behind it, and that's going to give you all the the information that they're going to need in terms of your experience. But you can highlight what your experience is. You can highlight the reason you're sending that resume to them, whether it's responding to a particular posting or job ad or what have you, or if it's just inquiring about general employment at that particular company or in that particular industry. And then again, a little bit of highlight about what your experience has been, and then requesting to have an in-person interview to discuss further your qualifications. That's essentially what it is. You don't want it to be too personal, in the sense that you don't want to go into every little detail about yourself in terms of from a personal perspective. But at the same time, if it's appropriate to write in that you're moved to the area or you're recently looking for a career change, putting a line or two in that is fine. I would say 2 to 3 paragraphs at tops, and nothing terribly voluminous. Again, it's going to be scanned. Some hiring managers have no real need for a cover letter or don't pay much attention to it, but you're not going to know that, so I recommend rather than not sending one. But again, keeping in mind that the resume is really where the rubber is going to meet the road, and they're going to make some judgments about whether or not you're a qualified candidate to bring in and interview and talk further about your experience, based off of that. I don't know if you want to expound.
Yeah, just a few things. If you are responding to an ad with a specific, where there's a specific hiring manager or a specific person within the HR department, make sure you address your cover letter to that particular person. Again, if it's just a vague, you can use sort of your to whom it may concern, or to your HR department, or anything like that sort of. Anyway, I'll just move on from that. So.
And also, and you'll hear this theme as we talk about resumes as well. Spell check.
Yes.
Very important. We mentioned this in the other classes as well. And not just that, proofreading as well, because sometimes spell check doesn't pick up everything, and you'll realize that you've got a word that's misspelled, but at the same like form or from or data and date won't show up on spell check, either one. So you want to proofread it. I would recommend you have someone else look at it as well, or try to be objective about it and read it and see if it's something you'd want to read as well. But it's really the purpose of the cover letter and or the resume is to get yourself an interview with them. So you want it to be a good impression. You want it to be what the first thing that they see is spot on, as best as possible. That's really what you're looking for, because that's the goal.
Yeah, if you do make a mistake on your cover letter, a grammatical mistake or a spelling error, there's a good chance that just costs you the job. As crazy as that sounds, and we all make mistakes. It's this is our career we're talking about. Sometimes they look at it as, well, how important does this person take their career if they're unable to make sure that their cover letter is spelled correctly. So it's definitely something that it would be frowned upon if you made some spelling errors in your resume and or your cover letter. So any questions? I love questions, so it gets me talking. Questions about cover letters, or no? You were kind of almost going to put your hand out.
No, I am
Oh.
Now, the next part obviously is writing a resume. I would assume everybody has got a resume together at the very least, or have been thinking about that, or so forth. I know some of you might be early in your careers. There may not be a ton of information in your mind to put on there, but some of the resume writing tips that we've been talking about with the other classes, and we'll share with you is again the spell check part of things, making sure that it's professional. As far as the formatting, I guess we'll start with that before we get into the content. A little bit of less is more might be the way to go. Not everybody's resume has to look the same. You can certainly make it unique to some extent. But I wouldn't go overboard on the fonts and the crazy bold and italics and Sanskrit, writing styles and all that. Try to keep it, professional, like we talked about the cover letter. Try to keep it professional. Try to keep it, in a format that's easy to read. They won't get, when sent electronically, get all screwed up because you get these crazy margins and these fun things that you learned in computer class that won't translate well, and they want to be able to look at that and go through it. So that brings us to the content part, which is really where I see a lot of mistakes are being made. Does anyone have any thoughts about how long and those of you who've been in the class before, you don't have to answer this, but how long a resume should be? Any thoughts? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages? Anybody? 1 page, you think? That's exactly right. Now, as you get later in your career, a couple pages is probably not going to be a deal breaker if it's 2 pages for you, especially if the information is relevant. But really,
they'll probably only read that first page.
It's true. They're going to look at your most recent experience and take it from there, or they're going to look at the format and be like, well, I've seen enough, frankly. So try to keep it as best you can to 1 page that covers it. So the way to accomplish that is obviously going to be putting highlights, whether it's bullet points or dashes, and then putting in there. Don't write a narrative. Don't write paragraphs. It's just going to get lost on them. I see them. I had one just last week, 5-page resume, paragraph form, detailing all the wonderful things that she did, and I'm sure her work experience was tremendous, but it was really difficult to read. And it's also human nature to list every single thing you ever did for that company, everything. Don't do that. Either tailor it specifically to the functions and tasks that you did to the job that you're applying for, or just succinctly put in the highlights of the big components of what you did in there. Don't go crazy with things that you think are important to you that aren't going to be important to the hiring manager. As we mentioned before, you're not clairvoyant. You're not going to know what the hiring manager is thinking, but assume that they're thinking, I have an AR clerk position available, and I'm looking for someone who's got the education and/or experience for that, and I want to see what relates to that job. And of course, there might be a couple of other things in there that speak well to your work experience, but keep that at a minimum. Just try to put enough on there to get yourself that interview in there without boring them to death with a lot of information, as Pete said, that they may just completely dismiss out of hand. I've seen it myself, and I've gone through and seen resumes that were 4 pages long, and I go to submit it to a client, I just start deleting stuff like crazy. I don't keep, I don't add anything to it that's not there, but I get rid of a lot of the fluff so that when my client sees it, they're going to say, okay, now I see why you sent this person's resume, and then they'll make a determination on whether or not that person, qualifies.
Yeah. I mean, if, again, as Tom mentioned earlier, the cover letter and the resume are what are going to get you the interview, which ultimately will earn you the job. So all what they are meant for is to get you that interview. So remember that when you're thinking about it. Thinking about if you were sitting there and you had you had to fill a job, and you had a stack of 500 resumes, and now you have to go through them. You're going to pick the ones that are the most relevant to the job, that are to the point, and go through it that way. So, just a couple. Are you going to ask something?
Yeah, just to pick your brain, one of the things that the three of us who teach organizational communications, which is the resume building class, we recommend to stay away from templates like Microsoft Word template, because you need to make yours unique, and then you don't stand out because your resume is like everyone else's. Do you recommend the same thing?
I'm glad you pointed that out, and I'll answer that because I answered it for the other professor.
Oh, good.
There is certainly something to be said for, a unique resume or something that sets you apart from the the competition, if you will. On the other hand, it's a piece of paper with words, and there's thousands of people that are doing it. So it can only be so different than the next person's. So you just sort of want to stay away from, the craziness. If you go online and see that all these resumes, some of them have the little box thing, and then you put your dates over here, and I would stay away from that particular format. And we also mentioned having a couple different resumes, the one that you may hand out at a job fair that might show you uniqueness, and then you could say, well, here's my professional resume, that in case you need to scan it to anybody or do anything like that. So to have a couple different resumes, and quite frankly, you can have as many resumes as it takes to get the job, as long as all of those skills that are on the resume are something that you have done in your career. So you certainly want to cater your resume to the job that you're applying for. It makes no sense to be an ice cream scooper and apply for a job, that is in accounting and not have some sort of correlation between those. So you just want to cater that resume. So if you did work at an ice cream shop, scooping wouldn't be the important part. Maybe the transactions at the register, or closing down the register, or doing the bank deposits, those types of things. So you just want to kind of cater your resume that way. So, but yeah, individualism, it also pertains to the industry. If you're a web designer, or you're going to art school, or something along something where that really matters. A promotional company, marketing, that type of stuff. So yes, but if you're going in to be a staff accountant at a Fortune 500 company, they're probably looking just for the hard, cold facts of the case. So I don't think it's wrong by any stretch. So is that clear?
Yeah.
Enough at all? Yeah. Right.
And also, the type of paper you use, again, it can be sort of a creative, unique thing to think that you use some, mauve color with maybe some sort of background. At the end of the day, you don't know where that resume is going. It could be scanned. to be given, or just photocopied even, to give to multiple hiring managers. And it puts you at a disadvantage when it's all blurry in the background, and it's just, I mean, the hiring managers are making rash judgments. It's just what it is. They're judging you off of a piece of paper. It's just a fact. So you want to make it as easy as possible for them to understand what is on that piece of paper, not make it difficult to them. You can be unique without being, crazy and not look like everybody else. There are ways to do that, even if it's subtle. It'll be in there. But really, it's going to come down to that content. As long as it's clean and professional, that's really what your ultimate goal is. And if you can mix in a little bit of creativity, that's great. And of course, in some industries, you want to display that as part of your background. And Pete sort of touched on it, but also keep in mind, don't embellish anything on your resume that's not there. Don't, and certainly whether it's relating to education or your work experience, it will only harm you. It won't help you. It's not something you want to get in the practice of doing or try to get away with something, because a lot of clients are offering background checks, or if they're not even doing that, they're doing reference checks. And if you say that you led the team to, do this particular project that saved thousands of dollars, maybe you assisted on the team, maybe you were part of the team, but when they call and say, no, I understood they led a his team on their resume said they led a team to save all this money, their reference person is going to say, actually, well, I mean, they were part of it. They didn't lead anything. They were just a clerk on that role, and they did a good job. But you don't want to get into that, because then it starts to infer that you're dishonest, and obviously that's not a trait they're probably looking for in a full-time employee. So don't embellish, that part of it. A couple little format things too. If you're a college graduate, you do not need to put your high school graduate on there at all. It's implied, obviously, that you did. Also, especially if you're using a cover letter, but even I would recommend, even if you're not, you don't need to put an objective line on there necessarily. If it's terribly specific to a very specific skill set, perhaps it may be appropriate, or maybe in that industry it's something that hiring managers look for. But generally speaking, a cover letter should suffice for what your objective is. And you don't put reference information on your resume as well. If they're going to hire you, they're going to ask for those references. You can provide them another time. That'll give you some more space to try to condense that to the 1 page or 2 pages maximum, as far as that goes. Any questions on resumes from that perspective? Any of that information? Any thoughts?
Questions? Even from the professors out there, we'll take questions.
Now I have a question.
Yes.
Could-
I thought you just dropped your pen.
You said don't put the references, like, what if you said, like, references available upon request, would that?
That would suffice. I mean, but if you're running out of room on there, don't go crazy to fit that on there. They're just not going to hire you without the references anyway. So if they like your resume and they're bringing you in for an interview and they don't see that on there, they're not going to look at it and say, well, it doesn't say they're going to have any references for me. So that's not going to be a criteria for them. Once they meet with you, they can say, by the way, you'll be able to provide references. Do you have that information with you today? Maybe at the interview, you bring those references along. And if they don't ask for them, you may want to put it in. It might make you look a little better to say, by the way, I wanted to bring my references in person if you wanted to contact them. At that point, they'll get them. But it's not required on the resume. Certainly don't list the people who are on there. That's definitely not. But the line you just said, if you have the room for it, or you feel it's appropriate, or that's how you want to do it, go for it.
Yeah. Use resume paper, too. So just and one more thing, if you are going to email your resume to anybody or anyone, any hiring manager, decision maker, or even us, make sure that it's going to come out the same way as you sent it, or make sure it's going to come up the way that you designed it to come up. So sometimes different formats call for different things, and it just creates a complete mess. So be sure in which computer system you're using. So.
And also, when you put your dates of employment, months in year will suffice. You don't need to put this specific date in there. That's fine. And if you have any, we talked about this in one of the classes quite a bit about gaps in your employment. Some people want to fill in that gap with what they were doing during that time, whether it's just looking for other work or what have you. Even if you leave the gap in there, just expect that you're going to be asked about it. So have obviously the appropriate, honest answer about what you were doing, during that time. But don't try to extend your dates of employment to make it seem like you have less of a gap between jobs. Having a gap between jobs is not necessarily a deal breaker for most hiring managers. They're going to look at what your experience is, and then if they see a gap in there, they may circle it and write the word gap with a question mark, and when they interview you, they'll say, now I noticed you had a gap in your employment, it looks like about 1.5 years. What were you doing? Maybe you were working a retail job that you were just doing because you were also a homemaker or what have you, and you just felt like you wanted to admit that, and just honestly explain that to them. Maybe you were, it doesn't even matter what the reason is your gap, just have an honest reason that you have a gap in your employment on your resume, and you'll be able to explain that. Most of them, any hiring manager should be understanding, and that's all they're looking for is explain the gap. Great, that's what it was, and you move on. Also, don't put the reason why you left another job on there as well. They'll ask you that question, so why did you leave? So they'll ask you, typically the interview will say, what did you do over there? You go through the tasks, and then they'll ask you why you left the job, and then you just honestly explain to them what happened.
Beautiful. What time do we have till? That's it.
Well, if you might talk about 3 or so, and then you could go into some questions.
Okay. So I'll talk a little bit about Robert Half and Robert Half International, and what we can do for you as potential candidates. Robert Half is known for its specialty in accounting and finance. We also have technology. We have the creative group. We have legal. But right here in Manchester, we basically focus on accounting and finance. And I believe most of you are accounting and finance and business students. That being said, I would say this. You're probably doing yourself a disservice by not coming in and utilizing us as a resource for your career development. The reason I say that is for many different reasons. We place about 50% of the individuals that come into our office out at a job that they, to their liking. Right now, it's probably closer to about 40%, so it's a little bit lower with this economy, which is still pretty high. As we see, 30 plus people a week, so that means we're getting between 12 and 15 people out there every single week out to work. And about 40% of those jobs turn into permanent opportunities, even if they started on it as a temporary. So for the 50%, or right now 60% of people we aren't able to place out there into a job that's going to gain them experience and earn them money, we offer the chance for you to sort of master your craft, master the interview, master your resume, master your skill set in terms of computer, I can never think of the word, computer software. We offer a online training tool where you can take over 6,000 different courses for free, in which some places would charge you $500, $600, $700 to take this particular course. So those are some of the items that we have just for coming in and saying hello to us, just for coming in and practicing your interviewing skills, just for coming in and allowing us to give you some career advice on what it takes to get a job in this market. So, this is something that we're directly doing every single day, dealing with people that are in a financial crisis that need a job, and they come to us looking for a job, and now it's our job to go out there and find them work. So there's a lot of pressure that comes with that, and we've sort of seen everything from every angle that could possibly pretty much happen in the workplace. So we come ready to give back to you folks to allow you to get out there, whether it's through us or whether it's on your own. So we're happy either way.
Now, once we place you on assignment 2, that's where you get, really the full benefit. Obviously, you get gainfully employed, but you get a valuable resume-ready experience. Put that experience on your resume. What you did, you can list it as I worked at, ABC company, through account temps, and then list all the things you did. You can get a reference, a positive reference from the person you worked for there. It's good for networking opportunities. You can get exposed to industry or software or both that you've never been or otherwise may not have been exposed to, whether it's a software program that's universal or something proprietary to that industry that can be very valuable to you, and it's a great way to get into that way. And Pete mentioned about 40% of our folks being hired on by our clients. It's often the case that the assignment you were going on is not intended to be, something where you're going to be hired on, but because you did such a great job, they're going to find a spot for you and put you on there. And so in other words, it's a way to get your foot in the door and then kick it in by your performance and by what's going on in that department or that company that you do well. It's really a great opportunity for folks to get a start. I have already had 6 people this year. It's only been 2 months that have been converted onto our client's payroll. I think at least 4 or 5 of those folks, it was not intended they were going to be hired on when they initially started on the assignment. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And then if you do a really good job and the assignment does end, we're going to be looking to get you out to work right away, because there's one thing now that we know is that you did a really good job somewhere, and we can skill market you to other like or similar clients, and see if we can't get you, out to work that way.
Yeah. As far as types of clients that we work with, if some of you are thinking, I want to work for a large company someday, I want to work for a small company. There's no company that we don't work with. Our business is Robert Half's been around for 60 years. We're a Fortune 500 company, and we've grown our business from medium-sized companies, not the big, huge, gigantic companies, all the stuff that's about $10 million in revenue to $500 million in revenue, which is getting up there big, but more like 10 to 250,000 in revenue, which has 10 to 12 to 15 people accounting departments or smaller. So those are really that's where 80% of our business comes from, is all those medium-sized companies, and they obviously employ most of America. So one thing about if you do come and register with us at some point in time, whether it's this month, whether it's next month, whether it's before the end of the school year, so that you can utilize us for any type of summer help. I wanted to talk to you about an opportunity that we might have inside ours with our administrative team. But we can talk about that after. If we're not able to get you out in that first week or that second week, we're going to continue to try. My recommendation is always to stay in touch with us. Let us know how you're doing in your career search. If there's anything that we can do to help you. The fresher you are in our minds, we do meet with a lot of people. I'm not going to lie to you and think that you're the only person that we meet with. We meet with a lot of people. But if you stand out and you keep yourself, in our ear, we know that you want to work. We're going to get you out there. The chances for you to get out there through us increases immensely. Can't really say that enough. So.
Has anybody here worked through a staffing firm before, or in any kind of job at all, even if it wasn't accounting and finance?
Yes. I forget your name. Gary, yes.
So again, just to reiterate, you come in, you go through a professional interview with us, and we also will do skills evaluations, so you can get a feel for where your skill level is as well. It'll be dependent upon what you say you have for software, what have you, that you've used, and then we'll be able to do that so we can differentiate between one person and another. So when a client calls in and they need someone with really strong Excel skills, for example, we can look at the evaluations and determine who's the best or most appropriate person for that. It also gives you an opportunity to see where you're at, not just your overall score, but broken down by different categories, and you can see where you're strong, where you're not, and then we use that information to skill market you to our clients, as part of it as well. So I want to make sure you know that when you come in, we can do some skills evaluations for you. And again, it's not a pass-fail thing. It's really just to see where you're at, so we don't place you somewhere where you're overwhelmed, or someplace where you're not utilizing all your full skills. We try to get the best matches we possibly can. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, and I know that that seems to be the scary part about coming to see us is, well, I got to take all the tests, or they're not tests at all. They're like Tom just said, they're just to evaluate where you are. In fact, if you go out, you find out that you're maybe weak in this category, we don't look at it and say, oh man, she's weak in this category, there's no way we can get them out to work. It doesn't dictate whether or not you're able to go out to work for us. What it dictates is if you're not good at Excel, you're not going to go out on a job for us doing Excel. So, and it tells you that might be something that you need to work on. So, and I've said this to a few other classes, Excel is such an important piece of accounting and business in general. It seems to be the one thing that if you had one skill in the world and you were an Excel guru, you could always get a job. So if you come into our office and you master Excel and say, I need to get out there on an Excel job, we can take your resume, we can take your Excel evaluation, and we can find you work probably within a week at least. So I mean that's one thing to keep in the back of your head if you're want to get better at a particular computer item.
Have you guys had a lot of people that come in with absolutely no experience in the field that they're going in, and you've been able to set them up for a job?
Especially if they have education in that. I mean, specifically in the accounting field, in our office team division, they have some entry-level positions that don't, have, some of their positions don't require much experience or even any particular hard skill set. But having said that, in the accounting side of things, obviously if you just have the education and your experience may be retail because you're new in your career, and it may not seem like, well, it's good to have that on your resume, your retail experience, because it shows you've worked a job, you've been gainfully employed, you've been able to have been responsible enough to hold a job. Having said that, with our clients, often they'll call it an order, especially in the entry to mid-level positions. Obviously, senior staff, it's a little bit different, but on the entry-level positions particularly, they'll just say, we need someone who's going to work in this department, who's either maybe had the education for that, or they've just touched it in their past, or just someone who can pick up things really fast. We get a lot of things like, we need someone who has really good system skills. And the reason they'll say that is because they have some proprietary software that no one in this room has probably ever used, because it's very specific to their company and or their industry. But they want someone who's going to go in there and be able to pick it up pretty quickly, because it's going to be fairly logical, but they want to make sure that person can do that. In a combination of your skills evaluation and your education, that should be a good match there, and at least get an entry-level position. And now, let's say it's an AER clerk position. Now, when that assignment ends, whenever that is, if it's a couple of months or what have you, then you'll be able to put that on your resume. And suddenly on your resume, I was an AER clerk at this company, through account temps, and you can list all the things that you did using a particular software that, again, may not be, another company may not use that software, but it shows you've got those system skills to do it again. Does that answer your question?
We'd a couple things that we brought with us, and we've run out. We've had pretty good success as far as people being interested in our products here, but I do have a few items left, and one of them is the 2009 salary guide. And Robert Half dictates out there in corporate America essentially what people make as far as money. And the way they dictate that is by making many placements out there into corporate America. So our marketing team has done a lot of research to find out what people are making in what parts of the country, in what position they're in what industry they're in. So this kind of tells you, based on your particular skill set, or let's say you don't have a skill set, it has entry-level positions, what they would be paying. One thing on the temporary side of things, sometimes on a temporary job it may pay less than on a permanent job as well. So I would say when you come with us, have a number in mind as far as what you would like to make in terms of dollars. For the most part, if you're a student just looking to gain knowledge and work experience, the more flexible you are with us, the more flexible we can be with the clients, the more opportunities and chances they will take on you and us. So as long as we know you're a good person, you work hard, and you have the education to go out there and do the job, as long as it's not this gigantic investment on their part, sometimes we're able to just give people opportunities just based on that alone. So the more flexible you are, the further you can drive. In this economy, it's like, I think even the president says, and everybody says, we have to make sacrifices. So, I mean, that's really what they're talking about,
Plus, that work experience is, in a lot of ways, I wouldn't say it's invaluable. It's going to be valuable for you down the road. So, in some respects, you almost feel like if it's going to be a temporary assignment, nothing you'll be budgeting the rest of your life on, why not? You almost feel like I would do it for free to get the experience in that industry, in that building. Now, we're not going to, obviously, we're going to pay people as much as we can possibly pay, as long as the client is able to build it into their budget. But that's what we want, that's the attitude you should have, is to be able to look at the opportunity. And that opportunity can be worth a lot more. And once you get started with a client, you're either going to be able to put that in your resume, or they're going to hire you on at a permanent rate, and they're going to be able to negotiate. And they're not going to know what you're getting paid through us So it's going to be still a wide open negotiation with them, and you'll be able to, hopefully get a pay rate that's more what you're looking for, that you can budget off of down the road. But that experience is very valuable, both in the here and now, and then into the future.
And as far as, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask a question. What if somebody comes in and they take one of your skills tests and they don't do particularly well? But then they come and they take some of your tutorials that you offer and they brush up and they learn and they do a lot better. And they come back and they take that skills test again, and this time they do better. When they go out, does a prospective employer see both tests or just the better test?
No, they would only see the better test, because what we're going to do is we're going to take the candidate, the client's going to say, I need someone if the client has a very specific criteria. Sometimes they don't. We need someone who's, pretty good, in Excel, Word, nothing major, just someone who's pretty good, and we'll get them there. If it's something very specific, then we're going to say, okay, we have Micheline, she's ready to get started on Monday. She came in and evaluated with us, and she did, 91% on Excel, and then she did, whatever, 89% on QuickBooks, or whatever the software is. And that's all. We're not going to talk about the fact, and by the way, however, that's her second test, because the first time she killed it. I mean, she was terrible, and then she took some. I mean, there's no point to that. Now that's the level you're at that point. So really, it's when someone has if someone scores 62 in Excel, and they're like, boy, I thought I did better than that. We'll break it down. We'll look and say, maybe you didn't do as well in mail merges or whatever, whatever it is, and then we'll write on their application, the word skill port, and that means they're going to get a password emailed to them by one of our administrative assistants, and then they can go on there and brush up on that, do the training, the online training, free of charge, and then they can give us a call back and say, hey, I wanted to come in and schedule an evaluation again. I think I can hit this a little better, and now we'll have that as their new evaluation, and it'll replace the old one in the system.
Yeah, that does a lot of things. It does a lot of things for you. It shows us that you want to get better at your craft, and now it shows us that you have gotten better, which makes us, more apt to get you out there. So that's a very, very, very good question. And like I said, these evaluations aren't to shut people out of working. All what they're for is to give us some sort of idea as where you're at. I've placed so many people that haven't even taken evaluations, but if they're going out on a specific assignment with a specific skill set, it's a must. So. But, good question. Need some more questions. Liven this place up.
Anyone?
Most of the accountants in here? Is that what it is?
You just show up, or should you call and schedule an appointment?
Definitely by appointment. You want to treat the whole process like you would if you were interviewing with any private company. Give us a call. We'll get you set up on a schedule while you're on the phone with us. We'll email you over directions and some things you'll need to bring with you. Some are, sort of administrative or clerical type things like, 2 forms of ID. Bring a hard copy of your resume. You'll go online and you'll register online with us, or essentially fill out an application online. That'll save you a lot of time when you come see us. You can do that, at your own convenience ahead of your interview date. When you come in for the interview, you want to dress professionally. Treat it like you would any other interview, because that's really what it is. We're going to be making judgments as well. I mean, if you come in and you dress, like that, if you're, if you're not dressed professionally, if you're not, you're sitting there chewing gum or putting your lip gloss on, and maybe not you, but and all that, we're going to be factoring that into whether or not we want to place you with our clients, because our clients may want to interview you. We try to avoid that, but some of them want to do that as part of their process. We want to make sure that you're going to be representing us when you go to that interview. So we want to make sure that that's up to par. So we'll go through the interview process, and like Pete said, perhaps the one difference is we can provide some feedback at the end of it and say, talk to you about the interview, or in your resume. I've done it many times. We'll be like, listen, your resume has got a lot of great content. You clearly have excellent work experience, but I would recommend you go home, work on the format of this, and then send it back to me, and that's the one we can present to our clients, because this is too cumbersome, or it's not, it's not something that easily flows, whatever it is, those types of things. And, again, we'll go through the interview process, we'll go through the, send you to do the evaluations, depending how long they take. After that, we'll go over the scores with you, and then we'll get you on your way, and hopefully we'll put you right on our available list, and try to get you out to work. Yes, ma'am.
All right, I have 2 questions. The first one is,
She's already asked 2 questions.
the first one is, if we have a resume that we think is perfect, are we able to send it to you to have you look over it before we have our legit interview with you?
Sure.
Yeah, we don't offer that like as a particular formal service, but feel free to grab one of our cards. And absolutely, I told someone in another class too, I was like, send it up, we'll take a look at it, we'll give you our honest feedback on it. If it's spot on, great.
Okay, awesome. And the second question is, now, what do you send people out for jobs? Is it just for like accounting and stuff like that, or do you have like all forms of jobs? Like, for instance, I've already graduated with my associates in interior design, and now I'm going back for business management. I want to like open my own business or something one day. So, is it only like the business aspect, or like do you have like, if I was looking, I don't know, probably not.
We are pretty specific in what we do. People call us and we market specific companies because that is, we're a specialized staffing firm. So your question is a good one. I would say to you, would it be beneficial for you to come in and sit down with us and talk about that? Absolutely, because you're going to gain those interview skills. You're going to be able to, master your craft as far as any kind of computer skill set. And we're also going to be able to help you, network. That's half of it. It's not what you know, it's who you know type of thing.
Even if I want to get a job in something like the business aspect of that too, because I will always look at it.
Yeah, so in your particular case, we could market you to, places. One of our clients is Company C, which is I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but they're huge. I mean, they probably employ 50 interior designers or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
But we do a lot of like data entry projects for them. So would I send you on a data entry project over there? Yeah, and now you talk to all these interior designers, and you might meet a couple of them that, say, well, here's my card. Someday when you finish up this part, So there's a lot of different things. It just doesn't hurt anybody to go out there and try to find work. So.
And you do work like all over the seacoast, like anywhere like around this area?
Yes.
Like I live an hour away, so for me I would commute an hour because I commute an hour from school, but obviously if there was something.
I live in Kittery, Maine, by the way.
Oh.
I live in Portsmouth, so
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, that's perfect in Portsmouth.
We have a Portsmouth office, we have a Nashville office as well, if that's more convenient. Those are the three in New Hampshire.
In Portland, Maine.
And then we have, which is in Maine. And then, as far as that goes, and you can go to, any one of those. And if you work in a location so central, they can all be working on your behalf because, you
You
don't
guys
want
have
to
a
travel.
Manchester one.
Yeah, we're from the Manchester
We have
one.
one in Hong Kong, too.
So would we be
Sorry,
physically having
Switzerland.
our interviews with you when you come, like with him?
You could, if you came to the Manchester office, either myself or one of my team and account temps, as far as that goes, any one of the staffing professionals there, handle that part of the process.
So. Yes.
I'm not English speaker, so I wonder how hard it's going to be for me to get a job now. Because, I'm not going to speak proper English like, others. I'm just curious.
It really depends on if that job is that job involve public speaking, or is that job, behind a computer, typing in? Can you?
Right.
Yeah.
If you, like a receptionist or a customer service rep, it may not be, the best role for you. It'd probably be difficult. It'd be frustrating for you, I'm sure. But in the accounting fields, there's less of that that's, required. With the possible exception of collections, we might have to pick up the phone and all that. But, I can't imagine it being a large roadblock, if one at all.
Yeah. Numbers and
I'm working
numbers.
for Walgreens, so I work with public too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the better you get at anything, the better off you'll be, so. Yeah.
Thank you.
Are there any fees involved for the students coming?
No.
Not one. There's nothing that would cost them any money. We, in case you're wondering, we're not a nonprofit, but we get our, money from our clients. That's we bill our clients, and they have the expectation if they have a job that they think is going to pay, whatever, $14 an hour. They know they're not getting billed $14 an hour. It's a relationship that we work out with them. You would have no part of that. Even in the conversion, if they wanted to hire you on, we work all that out with them and keep you out of the fray. And in some ways, it's got everything to do with you because your performance put us in that spot, which is a good spot to be. But on the other hand, it's got nothing to do with you. It's a business transaction between us and our clients. But there is nothing. Our online training, coming in and meeting with us, being placed on assignment, there isn't anything that'll cost you anything.
Yeah. You know, I don't know if anyone asks themselves, you know, why would someone pay for, you know, someone to hire when they can just put an ad or whatever. There's so much time and energy, and I don't know how much you know about, like, to hire a staff accountant in the state of New Hampshire, it takes 16 weeks for that whole process from the beginning to the end. That's 16 weeks of production for, you know, 16 weeks that an HR person had to work on this, that the ad ran, that lost productivity because they interviewed 50 people. That's how our business is prosperous, because people don't have time to do all those things. So all that, the 40 hours of productivity that they lost trying to hire this particular staff accountant, they turn around and that's their investment to us, for us to do it. So we've met so many, I mean, we made 20, 25 accountants a week, and that's why they come to us. And we have a placement percent, it's like somewhere 95+% that we get right, and that those people stick. So it, in case you're kind of wondering why the heck someone would pay, you know, money to employ somebody.
And there's also the idea of using using staffing firms to hire their full-time help, because it ends up becoming sort of like a working interview. Some clients, not all, just want to do strictly temp to hire, so they can see how the person, and the person likewise can get a good fit there. Because otherwise, as Pete just mentioned, you go through all those resources, you hire the person, and then the first 2 weeks, either they're kind of like, boy, they aced the interview, but they're not really acing the job, or likewise, the person starting is like, you know, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And then it's a little bit easier if those two things happen, and they don't happen all the time, but if they do happen, it's a little bit easier if it's temping, the person who's in there starting off as a temporary employee, on both sides, not just the client side, but on the candidate side, to get a feel for what they do. So that's part of it too. They can everyone can sort of hedge their bets a little bit, and we operate as a middleman. We find the openings, and then we fill them. And one thing about openings, we talked about this in the other classes but haven't mentioned it here, is we often see job openings that you will never see on the web or in the newspaper or whatever else. They get a job, it's an AR is getting backed up and they need somebody. Let's call account temps and get someone in here tomorrow so we can get working on this, and it's open-ended. All Bob from account temps. They did not put that ad out there. They didn't do any sourcing on their own. They made one phone call to us, and then one of our candidates is going to get a job that no one else out there even knew existed.
And this is an economics class. Is it micro or macro? Micro. This is about the only economics lesson I can give. Right now in this economy, I mean, why you might wonder, well, unemployment's so high, blah 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 blah. We're super busy on our temporary side of the business. The reason we're so busy on our temporary side of the business is because companies are afraid, not knowing what the future holds, to make an economic investment, on a fixed cost or add more headcount to their business than they need to. I mean, it usually costs someone, for every $1 they pay you, they're paying $1.40 to have you employed. So if they just utilize our firm, which they are, and we're there to remind them to do it as well. I won't say that we're not. That is why we're still able to get so many jobs out there in a jobless economy. So
it's fixed versus variable cost. How's that?
Yes.
There you go.
How many temp jobs can turn into a full-time job?
40%. 40%. And to answer your question even a little bit further, we have a permanent placement division, we have a temporary placement division. The permanent placement division mainly deals with staff accountants with at least a 4-year degree, unless it's an operational job, then they'll look at other individuals. The temporary, anybody with the skill set that can do the job. So the temporary side of the business actually places about 5 to 10, I'll stick with 5. 5 people to the permanent side's 1. So you actually have there's a higher chance of you getting a permanent job from our temporary division than there is from our permanent division, if that makes sense.
Right.
So.
And I have another question.
Yeah.
If you
start, like if you don't have a degree yet, but you want to get your experience in before you graduate,
Good idea.
would it be easier to get as much experience? Like, I don't know. I guess, how many companies would be able to pay for education? Because I know like some of them will pay for you to go back to school. Like if you get your bachelor's degree, and you want to get your master's degree.
I would say that is getting a little bit scarcer right now. It's not the benefit that most companies do have some sort of college reimbursement or college tuition program. You hear a lot about, so and so. Well, now the company's paying me to go get my master's degree and that type of thing. Tom, do you have anything to add on this?
Yeah, I mean, it
depends on the company.
Yeah, it's usually going to be larger corporations that do that, and obviously for full-time staff, they're not going to do it for
full-time staff that they absolutely love, that they don't want them to go anywhere else. They want them to stay right there.
And it's got to be job related, which I mean, most of the time it is. I don't think there's too much on that, but if you're working for a large manufacturing firm and you're trying to get your interior design degree, that may not work for them. But obviously, if it's some sort of business degree or whatever, they're going to see the benefit in that. But I think there's a little bit less of that. But there's still, larger companies, they see the benefit in that, obviously, and do it. I know I've done it with my last company. I took some business classes that they reimbursed me part of the tuition, the books, and all that.
Same here. I had to pay for my courses up front, but then I was reimbursed later on. So I've seen that happen as well, personally. So, more questions? Yes, sir.
I work full-time right now. I come here full-time, but the networking opportunities sound really great. So are the jobs that you provide clients for a lot of full-time hours, or are there some part-time hours too? Because I definitely go out there for the experience and the networking opportunities, pick up another job for that.
Yeah, it is tough. It is tough sometimes when someone's working a full-time permanent position for us to tell them to, leave that to take the opportunity to be a temporary employee, since we can't always guarantee that we're going to find work there. To answer that part of the question, it's sort of a catch-22, because even if there was a job you wanted, we also don't get a lot of lead time to allow for a 2-week notice, which would obviously be the appropriate thing to do with your old job. So it's sort of a tough spot to be in. As far as the full-time versus part-time, at least here in Manchester in the account temps team, the majority, 80 to 90% of our jobs are full-time opportunities. It's typically, we do have some part-time, we definitely, and it's not, we'll do whatever. I mean, we'll do whatever the client wants, but most of the time it is full-time opportunity. Really, the part-time stuff we get most of the time is bookkeepers. We get a lot of part-time bookkeepers, but I don't know if you've seen a little different trend. But
no, that's basically, part-time bookkeeper would be the one thing that's part-time. So everything else is your business week, 9 to 5, which now the business week is not 9 to 5, it's longer than that. So
37.5 to 40 hours a week is typical.
So, or 65 in our case. So.
I think there's one last question.
Yes.
One more question. So would you recommend that you probably make sure that you can balance your school if you're still in school and a full-time job? You don't want to really go out there if you know that your school is really not going to get you through school or anything, so you have to stay there full-time for a certain amount of time. Because your temporary jobs aren't as good as your full-time opportunities.
Right. Yeah, it's tough to balance it with a school schedule, but
not necessarily on the temporary is not as good as the full-time stuff. If it's temporary, it doesn't mean it's not full-time. I mean, we have temp.
Sorry, I meant the part-time. It always is good as the full-time opportunities.
Oh, I see.
The part-time isn't as good as the full-time? Yeah. I mean, that's sometimes the case because that client may specifically just be looking for those 8 hours or 16 or 24 hours, whatever it might be. And what are the chances that it's going to go more? It depends on the growth of that company. But for someone that's in school full-time during the days that maybe doesn't have that Monday through Friday availability, I would recommend that you come see us for the simple fact that you can master the interviewing technique. We can make sure your resume looks really good. You can go online and do those skill sets. You can evaluate yourself to see where you stand at this particular point in time. As well as you'll be ready, come summertime. If you're not taking any courses during the summer, if you're taking them at night, perhaps we can find something for you then that's full-time during the week to allow you to now start to, earn some, or gain some experience in the field. So.
Okay, guys, let's thank them sincerely for coming. As a little token of our appreciation on Manchester Community College Day, we have a mug for each of you.
And there are people in the office dying to steal this right
There
now.
you go.
They haven't even seen it yet.
Okay, guys, thank you. They've got all kinds of handout, guys, if you want to.
Yeah, like I said, there's the salary guide, which is cool. It's very cool to look at.